I could imagine her doing
the
show.
Should be laying on the floor.
She was supposed to. One of the things that I want to talk to you about is the JFK files.
I think it's going to be just fine to open it. Let me put it that way. I think it's fine. It's going to be time. It's a cleansing. It's really a cleansing.
Did you just float out the idea of getting rid of income taxes and replacing it with tariffs? First of all, I love this idea of you teaming up with Robert Kennedy.
Right.
And I love this Make America Healthy Again.
Yep. But where you have them, the whales are washing up on shore.
Right.
So in 50 years, they had one whale come ashore. Now they had like 18 come in the last year.
What is happening with the whales? I've read about this.
What's going on, everybody? Today, I'm going to break down what I perceived or what I kind of took out from the Joe Rogan, Donald Trump podcast. I listened to the whole thing and I tried to make a compilation of 5 clips that I felt like were the most important. Of course, there were a lot of entertaining points and things that made me laugh and just stuff that was fun to listen to. But I wanted to just do this video particularly. I'll give my reaction to the full podcast at the end, but I picked out 5 clips from war to JFK, to income tax, to health, to Make America Healthy Again, and vaccines and stuff. And that's what this video is. So give me a thumbs up in the chat, and we're going to get into it. Dream Rare Podcast starts now.
It's the Dream Rare Podcast. Welcome to the show. The way to get the news at the desk or on the road. Let's go. God is great and success in our control. The world is crazy, but we get better from obstacles. Yeah.
What's going on, everybody? Brett Miller on YouTube, he said they're eating the whales. They're eating the whales. They're eating the fish. They're eating the octopus. They're eating everything out there. No, I'm just kidding. But let's get right into it, and then I'll give my full reaction at the end. But if there's new people that found this on YouTube or Facebook that just stumbled across it, I don't want to bore them with my hilarious and awesome Trump impression. I'm just kidding. But let's get into it because I don't want to be misleading. These are the 5 clips that I found most interesting. And each clip is multiple clips, except for one, I think, is only one clip. So the first one was at the end of the podcast, Joe Rogan asked about the JFK files. And I don't have the full answer because I didn't want to get copyright stricken. But here's the gist of the question, and I'll fill in the blanks for stuff that isn't there. And if you want to listen to the whole podcast, obviously you can do that. But here is that clip.
One of the things that I want to talk to you about is the JFK files. And one of the things that you said was that if they showed you what they showed me, this was your quote, you wouldn't want people to know it either.
So Joe Rogan says, what's up with the JFK files? Trump says a little bit of this.
So I opened them up partially. I was met with, from good people. I mean, good people. People that were well-meaning. Mike Pompeo was one of them. He's a good person.
So this spurred, I think I saw Julian Assange's wife said on Twitter, she was like, wait, Mike Pompeo is a good person. Obviously, Trump has to be diplomatic. He hired him. But when it comes to his administration, I think he's learned a lot of lessons. And Mike Pompeo, though, not only was he somebody who, according to Tucker Carlson and Julian Assange himself and reports, was trying to get Julian Assange killed, but also he seemed to be the main one who Trump keeps referencing that made him cover up the JFK files. Everybody knows Mike Pompeo was a CIA director, and then Trump had hired him, I believe, for Secretary of State. But it seems like he referenced that Mike Pompeo was one of the many people who told Trump, not now, now's not the time for the JFK files. They talked about it a lot, but my main takeaway was Trump seems pretty confident that he's going to immediately release the JFK files in full. Here's that clip.
I think it's going to be just fine to open it. Let me put it that way. I think it's fine. It's going to be time. It's a cleansing. It's really a cleansing. So I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it immediately, almost immediately upon entering office.
Well, the thing, when people look at it,
so he's going to do it immediately when he enters office. For those who've never watched my show or never seen these reports, in the JFK files that Trump released in the first term, he didn't release the gist of the actual assassination, but he did release a part that said that the CIA planned to stage bombings, real or simulated, or actually blow stuff up in order to go after Castro. So interesting stuff there. I'm going to move on to the second part. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section. Do you think he'll release it? And why do you think Mike Pompeo did not want them released? I think there's a lot of people that are deep diving, Candace Owens and others, into Jack Ruby and Jack Rubenstein, as his real name was, and the potential relations there, not off of hate or anything. I mean, if you look into him and conversations that people had with him in jail and news reports, you could see that there was a sort of correlation there and perhaps a motive. And if you know how the United States works, if that seems to be true, then it's obvious why the United States would be covering it up. But of course, this is all speculation until the files are fully released and then people could see what's really in them, because that's just the paper trail, or rather the, puzzle solving that people are trying to do with limited amounts of information. So let's get into the second one. It is income tax, where Trump claims that he may try to get rid of income tax. I don't know if he really will, but his idea is that using tariffs is better than income tax, which is interesting. I mean, tariffs, I feel like he makes a good point. I could see it both ways. Like, some libertarians don't like tariffs, but Trump seems to be very strong and intelligent in his thought of why he likes tariffs, to, incentivize American made stuff and punish companies that are outsourcing. But, I've never heard the idea that if we did more tariffs, we can get rid of income tax. Now I'm listening even harder. So I don't have the full clip, but here's the question and the gist of Trump's answer.
And then around in the early 1900s, they switched over stupidly to, frankly, an income tax. And you know why? Because countries were putting a lot of pressure on America.
I think I missed the first one. My bad.
Did
you just float out the idea of getting rid of income taxes and replacing it with tariffs?
Well, okay.
Were you serious about that?
Yeah, sure. But why not? Because ready? Our country was the richest relatively in the 1880s and 1890s.
So I think you talked about how McKinley got assassinated. This is the part that I don't have. And McKinley was using tariffs to, supplement before they had income tax. So then he goes on to say essentially this.
And then around in the early 1900s, they switched over stupidly to, frankly, an income tax. And you know why? Because countries were putting a lot of pressure on America. We don't want to pay tariffs. Please don't you? Believe me, they control our politicians.
I want to save a lot of my opinions towards the end, because I do want to do what this video said it would do, and then I'll get into my opinions. But I do have to say, if you read the Communist Manifesto, a graduated progressive income tax is a communist ideology. I'm not saying they invented it. I'm not sure if that's the first instance of the idea floated of a progressive or graduated income tax, but communist ideology is so set in America right now, and just backwards ideology, that it seems normal. Like, when a Republican usually gets in, they just say, we're going to change the tax from 39% to 32% or 35% to 40%. And all of that is communist, in my opinion. Like, even the idea of like a 15% income tax would have seemed crazy hundreds of years ago, and it would have seemed socialist and communist and just ridiculous. But they slowly weave it in, and now it's like, oh, you barely make money, we'll take 15. You make some money, we'll take 20. Oh, you're doing well, 20, 30. And then they try to frame it as like the millionaires and the billionaires. But the millionaires and the billionaires usually find tax loopholes because they have the smartest lawyers to finesse it. It's the small businesses who just made money for the first time or are trying to employ 5 to 10 people who are getting taxed 35, 40%. It's ridiculous. Me personally, I'm against income tax. I mean, I don't know how much my opinion really matters, but when Trump starts floating the idea to get rid of income tax, that's speaking my language. I mean, I don't want to get into specifics, but if you could, the amount of money that I've had taken from the federal government, and for what, where are the roads? Like, certain places have good roads, but most of the country has crappy roads, crappy infrastructure. They hate us. They're sending the money to Ukraine and Israel and then calling you all sorts of names, pro-Putin, anti-Semitic. It's like, you're not even supposed to have an opinion about where your money's going. And I don't want to get on too big of a rant, but anytime I say certain things, people say, mind your own business. I'm all about that, because I don't tell other countries what to do. But if we're sending hundreds of billions of dollars to Ukraine and hundreds of billions of dollars to Israel, it's basically our war, whether the media tells you it is or not. And they don't want you to be able to vote your way out of it. The one war, you're not going to vote your way out of it. It's not possible. The other war, Trump is the vote out of the Ukraine-Russia war, but they basically undermine him at every level to make that war happen, whether he's president or not, and try to keep him out of office so they could start the war that they've always wanted to start. So, income tax, a lot of that, not all, I'm not saying that's the only reason, but look at now that they steal our money, they're just so emboldened. It's like, oh, we're taking 35%, 30%, 20%. Now we could start this war. Now we could do this. Now we could start this other agency. They're just running amok with our money. So the fact that Trump is using tariffs in order to try to get rid of income tax, allegedly, I don't know if he'll pull it off. That's very interesting. And One thing I do want to say before I move to the health part of this, which I found fascinating, is that Trump, he really knows what he's talking about. You might not agree with him, but he can full form talk about tariffs. And, he embellishes a lot, and he definitely like runs in circles. He's a good storyteller. And he even says there, he says, if you don't tell a story, nobody wants to listen. So I'm purposely embellishing everything. He's a smart guy, like social cues wise. I'll get into it at the end, but like he just runs circles around everybody else. He's hard to get like to stop when he starts talking, but he really does understand income tax. Well, I would say tariffs, energy, like these are the things where Trump shines. And he made a really compelling case for tariffs. With that being said, one of the things that he doesn't seem to care about is the next clips I want to play. I got 7, which is about health. And this is where I hope he lets RFK and other people, the Means family, and people that know what they're doing, he needs to let them do it, because it's so clear when I listen to this interview that he cares so much about oil. He cares so much about like foreign policy, and he just doesn't care about this health stuff. You could just feel it in his body language, which is understandable. You don't have to care about everything, but please, Trump, don't think this is a small issue. This is a huge issue. Let people who care about it do it, and there's a chance of that. But here's the clips of Joe Rogan asking him about what we all were hoping Joe would, which is the Make America Healthy Again stuff.
First of all, I love this idea of you teaming up with Robert Kennedy.
Right.
And I love this Make America Healthy Again idea, because there are chemicals and ingredients in our food that are illegal in other countries because they've been shown to be toxic. There's pesticides and herbicides, and there's a lot of shit that's been sprayed on our food that really is unnecessary. And there's a lot of health consequences that people are suffering from.
Keep going, Joe. We appreciate that. I knew he would probably bring this up because Joe's pretty health conscious, and it's so true. I mean, they're going to get into it here. What's going on in America is disgraceful, and there's so much propaganda and lobbying to make people not think it's a big deal. Look how fat everybody is. Look at all the diseases. This didn't just spontaneously come out of nowhere. We all know what's going on. RFK knows it. Rogan knows it. Let's make sure Trump does this, because this is something you can tell he doesn't care that much about.
A lot of these things.
And I brought this chart for you.
Beautiful.
Because I had a feeling you'd be asking me. Look
you.
at this chart. These are healthier countries. Look what the United States is. I'm going to send this to RFK Jr.
So this is, something along the... I was actually talking to RFK today, and he told me that more than 70% of young men are ineligible for the military because of their health.
I could see it.
That's crazy.
A lot of it's obesity.
So here's the...
I thought Trump did great in the interview, so I don't want to be overly critical because I'm going to get into all the great things he did later. But, I thought that like he's such a character that he's like, look at this chart that I found. I'm going to send it to RFK. Does Trump really think that RFK has never seen that chart? RFK can talk about this stuff for 3 hours straight. He's seen all the charts. He sued, Big Pharma and Monsanto a bunch of times. And like Trump is such a character that he's like, you're talking to him about other topics. He could talk about oil and income tax, and he knows all the specifics. He loves it. With this, he's just like kind of, he's like, look at this chart that I saw the other day. I should send it to RFK. Bro, he's seen the chart. We've all seen the charts. Like America's health is suffering. I hope he really listens to what Rogan was saying, because out of all of the interview that Trump was so involved and so engaged, this seemed the least interested that he seemed out of any topic that they talked about, which is a little alarming to me because it's the most important topic. But with that being said, Kamala's not going to do anything. Trump, the only hope. He's the only hope. Hopefully he lets RFK do stuff.
Yeah.
And are you completely committed to have him a part of your administration?
Oh, I am. But the only thing I want to be a little careful about with him is the environmental. Because, he doesn't like oil. I love oil and gas. I think
just keep him out of that.
To fire. So I'm going to sort of keep him out of a little. I said, focus on health. Focus. Yeah. You can do whatever you want. But
I agree. Don't put him as the environmental guy. Put him as the FDA or HHS or CDC. I don't know what you want to give RFK, but let him be the FDA director. Like, he doesn't have to do oil. I agree with Trump. I don't like his certain energy policies. Like, he's got some good ideas, RFK. Others, not so much. But Joe Rogan asked the question, are you committed to letting RFK do health? And his answer is like, yeah, but we don't want him to do this. We're not talking about the environment. We're talking about health. So I hope, this is my hope when Trump wins. I should say if, because it's definitely still debatable, but let's just say he wins. I hope that people use the power of the people, his supporters, to lobby. Like, we don't have hundreds of millions of dollars like the mega donors and the corporations. Use our power, use our voice, because Trump does care about your opinion. He does love to be loved. He does like loyalty and flattery. So use your power of the people to make sure that Trump is hiring people like RFK to run health agencies and not people like Pompeo again, because Trump likes everybody who likes him. So it's like he's got this pool of people around him. We need to be sure that Trump allows RFK not to do everything, because RFK is not good at everything. But when it comes to FDA, chemicals in food, pesticide spray, give that to RFK. He's better than the pharmacy lobbyist that Trump hired last time. Let's play another clip.
But I would say that the big pharma wasn't thrilled when they heard that, I've actually always gotten along very well with him. I've known him a long time. He's a different kind of a guy. He's very smart, great guy. And he's very sincere about this. I mean, he really is, he thinks we spend a fortune on pesticides and all this stuff, and then you end up that chart is a terrible chart, the one previous.
So Trump said that big pharma was not happy because Joe Rogan said, is there anybody that tried to stop? I didn't have that clip because I don't want to include everything. He said, is there anyone who tried to stop you from working with RFK? And he said, yeah, of course, big pharma. And then Trump said that, RFK is very sincere. Trump's interesting, and I don't want to, because I really did like the interview, and I'm being more critical than I'd normally be. I thought it was fantastic. I thought Trump did awesome. I had a great time listening. I'm voting for Trump. But because I did the 5 most important parts, I'm kind of being more critical now because I think it's interesting rather than just play the funny clips. He says in that clip there, I got to play it again because I already forgot I was going to play that.
But I would say that the big pharma wasn't thrilled when they heard that, I've actually always gotten along very well.
I remember now. Okay. He said, RFK is like really sincere. The way he said that's just interesting to me because I know Trump is surrounded by people. Some people are not sincere. He talked about it early in the podcast too, like the first hour. Trump's awareness of human beings and business, and like he's so smart. I know a lot of people want to say he's dumb or whatever that hate him. You could tell that he's like a networking genius, and like he understands how people work in politics, and he respects every aspect of the game, even snakes and people that are like politicians. Trump's like, I don't like them, but I respect the fact that they've been able to last in Washington for so long. So I just felt psychology wise, it's interesting that Trump's like, he's really sincere about it too. Everyone should be sincere about what they're talking about. Like, it shouldn't be so rare that someone is actually sincere. Like, yes, RFK is incredibly sincere when it comes to that topic. But you notice the way Trump said it, it's almost like that's unusual because Trump is surrounded by people who don't actually care about anything. They care about money. They care about power. They care about lobbying. So I just found that interesting that he's like, he is really sincere. It's like, yeah, of course. Like, we know that's why we like him on that topic. So it's just a window into the world of all the people that Trump's dealing with. In order to be the guy that Trump is and the guy that Trump's always been, you have to have a certain way of dealing with people because you're going to deal with people you don't like. You're going to be in lawsuits. There's going to be Democrats and Republicans, and Trump's diplomacy, like, he has to play a different game than everybody else. And he's just so hyper aware of everything because he's dealt with it for 60, 70 years. So I think Trump is on a different level when it comes to how to finesse a world where you can't get along with everybody. I'm going to play the next clip.
It's such a bad chart when you look at where we are compared to other countries that don't spend 10 cents.
Right.
So, and you save a lot of money. But yeah, I've had some people that aren't exactly thrilled. You can imagine, right?
Sure.
It's a good question, actually.
Well, certainly if there
it doesn't affect me.
Some.
I'm going to play a few more clips, but I thought that one was interesting too, because he looks to the side. He's like, that's actually a good question. It's like the way he's surprised, where it's like he's sincere, or like, that's a good question. Like, did you think Joe Rogan wasn't going to ask any deep questions? Like, before this part, I would say almost the entire interview, I wouldn't call it a softball interview, but Joe Rogan's podcast, he's trying to just let people be themselves. So the first hour, you could tell that Rogan wants to ask certain questions and Trump's kind of just steamrolling him. He's so hard to cut off or get into the conversation. But I think Joe's probably like, whatever, let him talk about what he wants to talk about. Then I'm going to ask this question. So it's like the first adversarial question that Rogan really asked. That's kind of a tough question, or at least it's not even that tough. It's just like, are you going to let RFK do what he's doing? Like, Trump, he recognizes game where he looks out to the side like, oh, this guy's kind of pressing me a little bit. Wow. He's an interesting character, man. Trump is, there's never going to be another person like him. He's so fun. Everything he says is comedy too. You watch the first hour, he's making more jokes than Rogan. Like he just is so funny naturally. Every little thing he says is like hilarious. Like he's just like, oh, this guy's pressing me. Okay. I just like the vibes of it. But yeah, here's the next part.
So what do you do to stop that from getting in the way?
Well, look, they've come up with some amazing things. I mean, I don't know how you feel. I know you're against certain vaccines, but like the polio vaccine, people had polio. It was like a disaster. And they came up, Dr. Salk, and he came up with a vaccine, and there's no polio.
See, this is a thing too, because Joe Rogan didn't really ask about vaccines. Like that wasn't even really mentioned. They were just talking about RFK, and like it was more about obesity and like pesticides and stuff. And this is where Trump is such an interesting character, because it's like he loves to be like, yeah, RFK's my guy, but I don't want him to do that. But Big Pharma's they've done some cool things. And it's like he's so good at playing all sides of the room, where in one way it's good because I think for his own safety and also his own mystery, it's like you never know which way he's going to go. Big Pharma's going to watch this and be like, oh, I don't want him to let RFK do that, but he's still giving us compliments. He's got a way of doing that. But also for me, it's like, is that the best Big Pharma with vaccines can do? Like everyone always points to polio. And I'm not going to get into the specifics because you could read books like How to Lie with Statistics. They mention stats with polio vaccine. I can't say it, but Bill Gates has it on his reading list. So check that book out. But in general, that's all anyone could ever say. It's like, okay, so now we're going to justify, and RFK talks about this brilliantly, where it's like, once they passed the National Childhood Vaccine Injury Act, which protected and shielded Big Pharma from having liability financially for side effects, injuries, and deaths in kids when they pump them in, then all of a sudden they started increasing the schedule of childhood vaccines. And you can't even say they're doing anything. It's like basically illegal in this country. Sometimes your kids can't go to school. This was before COVID. You get censored off of every social media platform. Every single social media platform besides Rumble and Twitter are completely in cahoots with Big Pharma. So it's like, this tired talking point of like, oh, remember Jonas Salk? It's like, yeah, I also remember George Washington, but what does that have to do? Like, I understand it's the same industry. It's like if Ford made a good car in 1930, does that mean that like every car made by a different company in 2015 is exactly, gets a pass for everything? So it's like, it's a tired talking point, but I get what he's doing. He's like playing both sides. I'm not sure what he's going to do, because it's like, just let RFK run the FDA, bro, please.
Now, very interesting. There hasn't been polio, but now in the Gaza Strip, can you believe that? Have you heard that? There's been a big strain of polio coming out in the Gaza Strip.
Is it vaccine-derived polio? Because, there's a strain of polio that comes directly from the vaccine, because unfortunately sometimes when you vaccinate people for polio, you actually give them polio.
I haven't heard that, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, all I can do is I sit down and I listen to him, and I'll give it a total. I would love him to be right, because if he's right, it's a lot less expensive, generally speaking.
There's two things that people...
So nobody brought up vaccines. They were talking about RFK, but Trump gets into this like, remember the Jonas Salk polio vaccine? And now they're getting polio in Gaza, and they're rolling out the polio vaccine. And then Joe Rogan said, is the polio coming from the product? Because if you search, and this is a Google search, I know you're probably not even allowed to say this on YouTube or Facebook, so I'll just tell you to go to Associated Press or Reuters. And if you just Google polio vaccine oral and then Sudan, you'll find the first two articles that come up. It says that in Sudan, the most cases of wild polio virus came from the oral vaccine. They had an outbreak from the oral vaccine. Joe Rogan knows that. That's why he mentioned that, because I'm not saying it's the same exact product, but they're using the oral vaccine in Gaza. And it's already like a mainstream article from 3 years ago that most cases of polio found in certain parts of Africa came from that oral vaccine. Like, this is not a conspiracy theory. This is reality. And Trump says, I don't know about that. You know about Jonas Salk, but you don't know about that, but you're talking about it. So I'm not trying to be overly critical. Like I said, I thought Trump did great. I'm hyper being critical now because this is the the style that I'm doing. 5 of the most important parts, maybe not the funniest or most flattering parts, but that was to me the most pushback that kind of Rogan gave, and it leaves a huge question mark where it's like, is Trump going to let RFK do what he has to do, or is Trump going to side with his big pharma friends again? And this is all I'm going to say before I move on. To people that support Trump and like Trump, The great thing about him, besides the fact that he can talk for 3 hours and he is very transparent, he is accessible. You understand what I'm saying? He does listen. Most people don't. There's no way you're getting through to Kamala Harris and you're going to flatter her. It's all fake. And I'm going to make a video later next week to say why I'm voting for Trump, and I'm going to be very clear about it. But with Trump, don't sit there and be like, oh, he's definitely cares about what I care about. Like, he doesn't care about this stuff. He's a healthy guy. He thinks his health comes from genetics, and it probably does. I'm not saying it doesn't, but Trump is the type of guy that doesn't run. He drinks Diet Coke, and he's probably going to live till he's 100 years old. So he doesn't, it's not in his wheelhouse. And I'm not even saying it's a bad thing. He's just one of those guys where, like, RFK's dedicated his whole life to it. I really care about it because I see everybody fat and dying and getting diseases. And it's really scary to grow up in a country where like half of the country seems like it's suffering, more than half at this point. And diseases that used to be uncommon are super common. And they're spraying all of my food with a bunch of chemicals. And it's like, it's hard to even get food outside of that. So, Trump doesn't care about this topic, and it doesn't mean he's a bad person. I just hope his supporters can understand voting, supporting, showing love, but not just sitting there and being like, he knows best. He knows about oil. You listen, he knows about buildings. He knows about real estate. He knows about foreign policy. He knows about social issues and like how things work. He's very smart. Trump is super smart, super knowledgeable. He just doesn't care about this topic. And you have to care about it, or else we're just going to keep getting poisoned for the next 50 years. So this is our best shot in modern history. Trump winning the election with RFK standing next to him. People like Tulsi Gabbard, younger people like myself. I'm not that close to Trump, but like I know there's a lot of people like myself that are very close to him that care about all this stuff. We got to make sure he does it. This is probably the only chance we're going to get in the next like 20, 30 years. Maybe not, but it's important to use our voice and our lobbying power. We don't have money. We have his ear, no pun intended because of the attempt on his life, but we have his ear. So anyway, let's get into the next part. This was kind of an underrated environmental part. I've had people hit me up and friends that are, surfers and stuff that said, have you heard about the whales dying in New Jersey off the shore because they're putting all these wind farms there? And if you look up these articles, the mainstream media is pretending like it's a conspiracy theory because they're so into Green New Deal type vibes that they're not admitting, like just like windmills kill birds, and Trump did a great job talking about it. The wind farms seem to be killing, like Trump explains it perfectly here. So I'm just going to let him do it, and then I'll talk at the end.
But where you have them, the whales are washing up on shore.
Right.
So in 50 years, they had one whale come ashore. Now they had like 18 come in the last year.
What is what is happening with the whales? I've read about this.
So here's Trump's explanation to why whales are dying, which I'm sure the media is going to try to fact check because they're so desperately trying to cover up the fact that whales are dying from their stupid energy projects, most likely.
Well, they say that the wind drives them crazy. It's a vibration because you have those,
Right.
those things at 50-story buildings, some of them.
Right, and they're
50.
super sensitive to vibrations
They have
and
those,
sounds.
the wind is rushing, the things are blowing, it's a vibration, and it makes noise.
Play another clip real quick.
You know what it is? I want to be a whale psychiatrist. It drives the whales frickin' crazy. And
Yes.
something happens with them. But for whatever reason, they're getting washed up on shore. And, and yet the environmentalists...
Conveniently ignored by the
Yeah, but the
environmental
environmentalists, they don't talk about it.
people. Right.
So this is one of the things that like isn't spoken about that often by Republicans. I'm glad that Trump brought it up because Democrats always kind of say, I'm an environmentalist. Like, we care about the environment. But as a lot of people have seen over the years, the environmental, I would say, activism has been completely swallowed up by green companies and the climate change narrative. And I'm not sitting here saying that like no green energy is good, but what's real green energy? Like a tree is green energy. Like a tree is a plant and it takes in and then it spits out oxygen. That's green energy. A lot of these green energy projects, they're killing a bunch of birds with their windmills. They look disgusting. They're destroying the environment with the ugly windmills. Trump talks about it fantastically. The wind things, like you put all these wind farms in New Jersey, like right on the shore, and then all of a sudden whales are just washing up dead. And the environmentalists and the media They don't want to, the same way with the border, they don't want to admit anything's wrong with the border. They don't want to admit that anything's wrong with their stupid energy project. But it's like, what type of environmentalist kills whales? Like, the people that brought it to my attention is one of my friends who's a surfer. He loves the ocean. He's lived in it his whole life and made his living there. And it's like, he's like, dude, nobody's talking about this. But like, you know how bad it is? I'm a very spiritual person. I am an environmentalist. I care about Earth. It's like, do you know how bad it is to just kill a bunch of whales spiritually, literally, environmentally, ecosystem wise? Like, killing the biggest animal in the ocean is probably one of the worst things you could do. Just randomly killing them. Like, you're not fishing or eating or provide. You're just like, oh, they're dying, they're washing up on shore. What else is it doing to the ocean? And these people don't care. So I love that Trump brought that up, because it's so true. Environmentalists have been brainwashed by the climate change narrative. And I'm not saying that there's no truth to any of it, but the more you dive into it, the less truth you would think than there is. Like, they're just like, oh, if we do all this, this is going to do this. And it's like, it's not going to do that. You're assuming that all of these changes that we make are going to make a difference on a world scale. And you're taking out the factors of things we can't control. Like, there are volcanoes, there are storms. There is actual, they say it's a conspiracy theory, but they can manipulate the weather. Like, there is technology to make it rain and impact hurricanes. I mean, Bill Gates put a patent out for hurricane manipulation to try to lessen the hurricanes. So I'm not saying anything besides just look up that PC Mag article about he did a patent for that. It's like, there is real climate manipulation and humans are getting involved, but also they never talk about that. And then they just say, if we switch to this energy, then the world's going to be, the climate's better. You're guessing, because a volcano could erupt and do this, or this could happen and do this, or this storm could do this. They never really know. And the truth is, at the end of the day, most green energy is not green. It's stupid wind things that are killing a bunch of whales. It's a bunch of electricity that they can't even power. And where do you think the electricity comes from? It doesn't come from Ben Franklin and his kite. It comes from coal and other types of energy. So it's like, the whole green movement in America has been completely co-opted. It's all fake. And they're just killing a bunch of animals, windmills killing birds, wind turbines killing whales, and nobody talks about it. So it's crazy. It's crazy that Trump is the only one mentioning this, and intelligently he knows what's going on. And it's pretty wild. Like, that's real environmentalism. He talks about cleaning the air, cleaning the water, cleaning the ocean. That's it. I know he likes oil a lot, and it can be a little messy, but I think he's trying to do that as ethically as possible. Last clip that I thought was important was, he said he's going to end the Russia-Ukraine war, and he can't tell you how he's going to do it, but he's going to do it. And I believe him. I think he can do it, and I think he wants to do it. And I think this is the real reason that they hate Donald Trump. It's not for all the reasons everybody else thinks. I mean, of course, there's some parts of that, but the reason that the deep state hates Trump is they wanted to start this war with Russia and Ukraine. They did after he lost in 2020, and they hate the fact that he's going to step on their toes. This is the number one, in my view, the number one biggest threat to the establishment. And that's why I believe, was it the first or the second assassination attempt? I think the second one. Who was the guy? He was probably working in cahoots with some sort of federal operation. I'm not saying for the assassination, because I don't know if you're allowed to say that, but look at, he was fighting overseas, working for Ukraine, like recruiting ex-Taliban members. Like, you think someone like that's not involved with the government? So I don't think that's a coincidence. But anyway, here's that clip.
If I told you exactly what I do, I could never make the deal. All I can tell you is that I would meet with Putin and I would meet with him, and I know exactly what I'd say to each one of them. And I believe that as president-elect, I would get that war stopped, and stopped fast.
So I believe him. I think he can do it. I think he wants to do it. And I'll just say this. I talked about 5 topics: the JFK files, income tax, the Make America Healthy Again, the whales, the war. Those are the 5 most important points, I think, that go deeper than just humor or interesting to listen to. And overall, I think, listening to this interview, I've heard a lot of Trump ones. A lot of the topics, I saw some of the comments, people were saying a lot of the topics were the same. It's nothing they've never heard before. I've never heard him talk for 3 hours straight like that. So I do think he went into more depth on tariffs than I've ever heard. He talked about social issues, or not like literally social issues, but social kind of science of like how he does business and what he thinks of politicians and stuff. I did find it really interesting. I mean, I came away from it thinking Trump is funny. He's smart. And I could tell that Joe Rogan, I don't think Joe really likes Trump. I mean, he could speak for himself, but Trump kind of dissed Joe earlier this year. Joe said in the interview, the reason that he even got this podcast was because of Dana White. Like Joe Rogan's friends with Dana White, and so is Trump. So I think he kind of set that up. That's what Joe said. And I could tell that Joe was getting a little frustrated, at least in my perception, because, Trump just talks and talks and talks, and he just doesn't let anyone else talk. It's an interesting kind of dynamic, because I think Joe likes to let his guests talk, especially when you have Donald Trump there. It's like, just let him do whatever. You're just glad he's there. But it did seem like anytime that Rogan tried to talk, for the most part, Trump would always just kind of like interrupt and like redirect it. And I think that's it's a purposeful strategy, because I think Trump is comfortable talking about what he wants to talk about, and he likes to lead the dance. Like when it's a man to man, there's a certain dynamic to it. Like in your head, who you think you are and who you are when you stand next to somebody, it's like a UFC fight, like you think you're the man, and then you're in the arena with somebody and the whole dynamic is different than you planned. Like I feel like that's an interview with Trump as well, because he's so commanding. His social skills are just like top level. Like the dude was the president of the United States. He's been famous forever. He's been rich pretty much forever. He's been the man. He's been on every show. He's been running around the media for 50 years. Like the guy, he knows how to do things. He knows how to talk. He knows how to shake hands. So that dynamic, it felt like the first hour, it was just the Trump show, and Joe was kind of waiting for his spots. But Trump knows how to like weave into like a talking point that he wants to talk about, and weave away from certain things that maybe, Joe wanted to talk about more. But I'm glad Joe had him on. I think it was a good opportunity. And I do think that Joe probably had a few questions he wanted to ask about JFK files and Make America Healthy Again. And I think he asked him, but I think that Trump's answer to the Make America Healthy Again one, I was not really thrilled with it, but at the end of the day, I already know what it is. Trump's surrounded by a lot of people. We have to make sure that he cares about this stuff, or else he's going to think about what Trump has to do. Trump has to hire somebody to run the CIA, the FBI, the, Secretary of State, FDA, HHS. Like Trump, he's got so many people talking in his ear, this person, that person. Like Trump's just like, yeah. He's not going to, it's a tough thing to choose the right people. He even admitted that in the interview, which I thought was cool. So someone said, this time I'll get it right. I don't know. Are you the president now? You're going to get it right. Someone said anomaly has been memory holds. Yeah. Is that what happened? I'm gone now. I don't exist. This is just a hallucination of a former ghost of myself. But I'll read some comments. That's what I thought. I thought overall it was a good interview. I thought Trump was funny, interesting. There were certain parts that definitely I could see how people perceived it other ways, but I just think Trump is he passed the test. It's not easy to do 3 hours on Joe Rogan, and he did what he had to do. And I think Joe seemed towards the end, Joe seemed like he's just like was a little like, I don't like this guy, but who knows? Do some research. Thank you for I've never thought of that. Thank you for the comment. Do some research. Maybe I will do some research. I've always just kind of gone live and said, duh, I've never talked about anything or done any research in my life. So thanks for the heads up. I'll think about it. Just kidding. Someone said the internet is crazy. I agree. Let's see. Someone said Joe was trying to pump him up and help him talk about things that we, the people, want to hear. Overall, it went great. Absolutely. Now, the first hour, Joe likes to let people be themselves and just like let them talk. I know his podcast is more like that. So if he has Kamala on, it'll be interesting to see if she does it and if he does a similar thing, will he press Kamala more because she has dumber ideas, or will he not? Who knows? But at the end of the day, it's like 3 hours of somebody talking. You get what you get, I thought it was definitely interesting. Definitely the first hour too, Trump, he went into more depth about topics I've heard him talk about, and you could just tell that he's an excited guy. Like he's having fun with life. He's kind of, making the most of it. Like he loves to just be in the mix. Like he's an inspirational guy, Trump, for sure. Someone said, thanks for sharing. Couldn't watch it. Wasn't paying Spotify. Well, it's on YouTube, by the way. You can watch it for free on YouTube, or you could just pay $9 and stop being so cheap, but just kidding. Someone said Kamala refused to do Rogan's show. He would ruin her. She's not very, what's the word? Talented. Trump would say she's low IQ. Her IQ is too low. She'd be on the floor crying for a medic. You're like, all right, maybe. Someone said, I've missed seeing you go live. You're always a voice of reason. Facebook doesn't really show my lives, so my YouTube lives are bigger than my Facebook ones now. I don't know why. Facebook just wants me to post memes. So if you want to watch my show, there's ways to do it, podcast or YouTube. I don't really trip about that stuff though, because everything's just always like evolving. So like my reels get more, and then my live streams, they don't send people notifications or something. They want short form content now. Everybody wants the doink, 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 TikTok, TikTok, clink, 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 swipe, 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 swipe. So we're all like dumb. We're like, wow, I just watched 100 soccer clips. Aren't we having fun? It's like, it's not, I like short form, but it's too much now. It's just too much. Like, it's like, I'm like just scrolling on my phone, like with like a fake smile. I'm like, am I even having fun right now? Like, I'm not. So I wish they'd show my long form on Facebook, but Facebook doesn't want to. Someone said, I still haven't watched Listen, but I'm glad to hear your opinion and how it's not one-sided. Well, thank you. I do what I can, I think. That's all you can do. Someone said, I just got out of Facebook jail. Well, welcome back to Facebook. I'll answer a few more, but I'm going to try to keep it under 45 minutes. I think that makes sense. Someone said, God does not endorse politicians, but humans are not God. So if I understand what you're saying, if you don't feel obliged to endorse, then don't do it. But it's like God doesn't do a lot of things that I do because I'm not God. So I'm fine with people who endorse. I'm fine with people who don't endorse. It's just you got to go with what feels right, I guess. But then also it's like, who really cares? Like if I came out and said, I endorse Donald J. Trump, like, do I think it matters that, like, I'm going to vote for Trump and I'm going to tell people why, but I don't think I'm going to swing the scales. Like if you're somebody really important or really, like Elon Musk, that's a pretty big deal. But like the average person just being like, I endorse, it's like, okay. Thank you, Facebook user. I can't see who the Facebook people are. It just says Facebook user. So I'm just going to assume that's all of your names. Your first name's Facebook. Your second name's user. Just kidding. Someone said JRE is on YouTube. Do more research. Yeah. Why is Trump getting away with Operation Warp Speed? I mean, I could list several different reasons. One, the Democrats were worse at it. Two, the political dynamic in this country nobody cares about. Like it's just like they escalate the problems to the point where your other problems are hard to like point to. Like if America was a normal country, we'd be like, all right, let's talk about that just the lockdown and all that. But now it's like war with Ukraine, war with Israel, or Israel war with literally everybody in the Middle East. They're fighting Lebanon, they're fighting Iran and Palestine. So it's like it's hard to point to things because things are so crazy. The border's wide open, so that's part of the elite's tactic is they escalate so much. Like they create 7 problems, Trump fixes 1, it doesn't even really get fixed, and the other 6 stay. So it's not his fault per se. I mean, Operation Warp Speed is obviously his fault, but people can't comprehend or like stick to anything. I think it's a crazy tactic that they're running where it's like so much. It's the same with like, sorry, I'm like going all over the place, but it's the same with the news. You used to watch the news and like one thing mattered. And it was cool because it's like, oh, one thing matters now, but they got to choose. People don't even realize this. They got to choose what mattered. So what they told you mattered didn't even probably matter. Now everybody has all these podcasts and social media. So it's like, how do you choose one topic? Like Trump almost got assassinated and it only mattered for like 3 days because then it's like, well, no, it's that part is not anybody's fault. I just think it's technology and just how we, try to comprehend everything. But the escalation tactic, I do think is their fault. Like they slowly do something and then they quickly do it. It's like open the borders slow, brainwash everybody. Now just open it big. And then, we'll just say everything's racist. So it's fascinating stuff, but why he gets away with it, I would say that's why. Someone said, so Anomalies hope is short-dighted. Shelly on YouTube, you're like, Anomalies been memory hold. You said that like 7 times, and now you can't even spell right. You're like, so Anomalies hope is short-dighted, Dightetet, dighted. This is my issue with people that try to hate in the comments. I don't care. I don't consider you trolls. I just consider you dumb. But it's like, if you're going to talk this much crap about me, first of all, you're watching for 20 minutes. I don't even care. But you're like not even like spelling. Maybe you don't look like this, but I'm going to like mess up the live stream, smashing this keyboard on my head for comedic reasons. But you're like, Anomaly is short-dighted. He's dighted short. It's like, don't you want to spell right? Like if you're going to be that critical, don't you want to make sure you put cited instead of indicted or no? You're just smashing the keyboard on your head, being like, you've been memory hold. I'll be memory hold in your life when you literally stop watching. If you stop watching right now and go watch like a cartoon, now I'm memory hold because I don't exist in your reality, which I'm fine with. And it seems like it's what you want. Let's do that. Why don't you just go watch a cartoon? But if you're here saying I've been memory hold, it doesn't make sense because you're watching me currently and slamming the keyboard against your head trying to spell properly, which, you know, we got to get the education up in this country. Not only is everybody fat and obese, but, you know, people can't even spell now on YouTube. You just got like angry people like, it's indicted. It's the indictment, the short indicted. It's like, all right, we get it. You know, you sound like Eminem to me. That's an awfully hot coffee pot. Should I drop it on Donald Trump's head? Probably not. Oh my gosh, I put my poo-poo spot in a private rock, and I know that I'm going to do a private stop, and I don't even know my friend owns a yacht, and I'm not saying yacht. I'm saying a rock. I used to hate Dick Cheney, but now it's so crazy. I'm Slim Shady, baby. I do Kamala and the Cheneys. It's like, cool, bro. Cool. So when does that album come out? That sounds fire. Anyway, so do we get rid of the Department of Education? If you look up real quick, hold on, Department of Education founding, I only figured this out like 2 years ago. It was created in 1980. So it's like schools were fine before the 1980s. Now schools suck. So they always tell you need like a department for that, a Department of Education. And it's like, oh, we need that. It's like, how did everybody get so educated before that? How were there colleges and universities and government schools? Like the government gets involved and they're just like, you need us. And it's like, dude, just stop taking my money and sending it to Ukraine, please, for 5 seconds. All right. Shelly said Anomaly's insecure. Shelly, stop cyberbullying me. Shelly, stop. You're hurting my feelings. I'm so insecure. I'm gonna after this, I'm gonna go throw up and try to look like the supermodels on TV, even though they're all fat now. So I gotta get fatter to be a supermodel. I don't know. I'm insecure. I want to be fat and skinny at the same time. I hate myself. Shelly. Anyway, you're awesome. Would I move out of the US or is that a girl move? I wouldn't say it's a girl move. I don't know if you're from like Sweden or something, you got family there. That's like makes sense. Or if you just want to leave, am I leaving the United States? No. Would I call someone a girl for doing it? Maybe my friend, because I just call him girl and gay because it's funny, you know? Do we do that still or no? Is that hateful? Do I need to go on a Martin Luther King apology tour now? Because I call men girls because it's funny and people that aren't gay, you know? Do gay people do that to each other and call each other straight? You know, they're like, you're straight. Like, no, I'm not. I don't know. But anyway, let's keep this under 50 minutes. Appreciate you guys. God bless you. God bless your family. God bless America. God bless the world. Let me know in the comments what you thought of it for this episode. I just tried to pick 5 things that seemed like relevant and politically important to some extent. Let's see what happens. I have a few videos. I have a song coming out later this week. And then also I am going to do a video of why I'm voting for Trump. Someone said I'm losing it. Don't lose yourself in the moment. You own it. You better never let it go. My mom's baloney gets one chance to blow. Got spaghetti on my sweater already. Out of control. You better lose yourself in the music. The moment you baloney, you better never let it go. I got Lunchables next to my stove. I don't even turn it on. I eat the Lunchables, yo. You know what I'm saying, dude? Those lyrics are so good. It's like the greatest poet, you know, Edgar Allan Poe over here is like, Mom, spaghetti, throw up on my sweater already. My mom's spaghetti. You're like, honestly, Eminem's like one of the better lyricists in hip hop history, but I've always thought that was corny. I never liked that song. And it's just like, Mom, spaghetti. It's just like, it's definitely memorable, but it's like also stupid. Like you threw up on your sweater and your mom's spaghetti's in it. It's just a gross visual. Like, can we talk about something else? But anyway, that's the show, Dreamer Podcast. Check out dreamrare.com. If you want to get one of these beanies, you can get one. The blue ones are almost sold out. The black ones are not, but you can get either one, black and blue. Shelly is acting out. It's okay. Shelly makes the show fun. We like people that comment funny things and can't spell because then it makes it funny. So appreciate you guys. Thank you for all the compliments, and I'll be back soon. Let me know what you thought in the comments of the Joe Rogan Donald Trump interview. Hey, what's going on, my friends? Just a few ways to stay in touch and support if you'd like to. The first way is dreamrare.com. We have blue beanies, black beanies, pink hats, other colored hats, freedom versus tyranny shirts, Stay Blessed long sleeve, God is Great long sleeve, and lots of more cool items coming soon. Dreamrare.com. Check out the shop to support. Everything's made in the United States. Handpicked by me. Patreon.com/raretalk for $5 a month. You can help support me, support the show. If you haven't noticed, unlike other channels, I don't work with very many sponsors, sometimes none at all. And part of the way I'm able to do that is with the dreamrare.com shop and patreon.com/raretalk. So thank you guys for keeping this show free, unimpeded, uninterrupted. I'm forever grateful. My free email list is stayintouchwithme.com. So check the links below in the description or just type in on any browser, stayintouchwithme.com, all one word. You'll find my email list, put it in there, and it's the least annoying email list you'll ever be on. I barely use it because I don't like getting emailed every day or every week. It's annoying. So I don't do it. Stayintouchwithme.com. It helps me take back some power away from big tech. Telegram, t.me/dreamrarechat or @dreamrarechat. Due to censorship, I post all my live stream and videos there. Sometimes I have some bonus content, and I try to give people a heads up when Facebook or YouTube won't. DreamRareChat at Telegram. My Instagram is @DreamRare. Thanks for everybody following there for shorter content. And DreamRareLinks.com. That's DreamRareLinks.com. Has all my stuff. My podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, my music on Spotify and Apple, my Rumble page, my BitChute and Gab page. All my links are found at DreamRareLinks.com. Thanks for watching.